that for 3 years, spent a lot of money on it, made no money off of it, so eventually I stopped. Now professionally, I have a really unique background in terms of my professional experience. I work in customer service. I work at a call center. My job is to take calls from angry customers, much like the type of people you see angrily talking at Cape Coral City Council. So I know how to deal with angry people. And that's what I want to do. I want to bring my customer service experience to the Cape Coral City Council. I think at the end of the day, it's all about serving the people, and that's why I'm running. That's why I think my colleagues are also running, and that's why I think we're all here. So with that, I look forward to the trial by fire that is the Bupac question. So anyone who wants to start us off? Yes?
What are you going to do about the iguanas?
That is a good question. I think that we need to work with. I think Dade County has an animal control system, but I think that we need to develop an animal control plan on that. That is something I haven't really thought of that much, if I'm being honest. But I think that obviously these are an invasive species. You see them all around, and I think there has to be a better way to gather them up and hunt them down humanely, just to get them out of the way. Or if there's even a way to capture them and possibly get them into, like, I don't know, like a zoo or somewhere where they can, I don't know, where they can actually live.
Escape.
So it's definitely an interesting question. Not one I've given a lot of thought on, but it's definitely something I'd be willing to look into.
You can train the parrots to hunt them.
Well, I know that with the rat problem, I think Curtis Lee wants to do cats, so I don't know if you have any like cats or anything that can hunt iguanas.
In Venezuela, they eat them. In Venezuela, they eat them.
In Venezuela, they eat them. Send some loose Venezuelans on them? No,
But they eat cats too, so never mind.
Yeah.
You could make a deal with the school board and they could serve them in the cafeteria.
Oh, dear.
That's a good idea.
Iguana meat, yep. Healthy
like
iguana meat. Organic.
Run for the school board. It tastes like chicken.
I've had one, it tastes like chicken.
Oh,
I
really?
mean, it does. Sorry.
That would be interesting, actually.
You can eat gator, why not iguana?
You could run on it.
All right, well, last week we had, the question asked last week if someone running for the council is road paving, repaving.
Mhm.
To me, that should be a big part of anybody's
Of course.
agenda, because they really need it out there in Cape Coral.
Oh, yeah.
And it's the one thing everybody can agree on, right? We need to repave the roads.
No, 100% agree. I think both roads and infrastructure is really not just the number one priority, but really what we need to do with our city. Not just with road pavement. I think we definitely need more sidewalks and options for multimodal transportation, like bike routes. But I agree with you. You know, there are so many areas in our streets when you go down Del Prado or Cape Coral Parkway or some of our smaller roads where they just need complete repavements. So that is something that needs to be prioritized in our budget.
And how would you do that?
By
Yeah, I mean, where's the money coming from?
So from my understanding, a lot of the road fees come from the gas tax. And then I think that's one of the things they were talking about, the mobility fees as well as going to be working on impacting the roads. So that's where we would, from my understanding, get that money. But we would essentially budget out for that. We'd make sure that we get those paved out and have a good transportation plan and focusing on those areas that need it the most and prioritizing those.
Oh, very good. Thank you.
Did I do better with my colleagues? Is that
Significantly. Yeah.
Oh, I'm glad to hear, Tara.
Okay, while I'm not a Cape Coral resident, I regularly go to the Cape Coral City Council meetings, and the last 2 times that I've gone have been since the change in when they do public speaking. And I've noticed that the number of people that are in attendance has dropped significantly. And that to me is an indicator that the timing and the start time has significantly chilled public comment and input. What is your position on that? How would you at least influence others to reconsider, or what would you reconsider in that?
So immediately after they switched the citizens input time, I posted very publicly my position, which was that I think we need 2 citizens input times. I think we need one at the beginning and one at the end. I think that the reasoning for the one at the end was a rational was rational. It was, you have people who are working that can't get there right at 5. I understand that. But as you've mentioned, it's like we've done this experiment and it hasn't worked. People still aren't coming. And so when you had all these people who were complaining to the candidates last cycle saying that, oh, we can't go, and they're not showing up, that shows me it's unsuccessful. So if I had to choose between one, I would choose citizens input before, because one, that's where people actually came and spoke. And two, that's where we need to hear them, because that's before we vote on something. And so we need to hear what their positions are before we vote on something. Now, mind you, and Joe's brought this up to me before many times, just because you're out there speaking, for every one person who's angry at the council speaking, there's probably 100 more who aren't, or who probably have a different opinion. And so something that I really want to do, I like how a lot of these council members are doing regular town halls, and that is something I would do as a city council member as well, to make sure that I'm hearing from everyone else who can't show up, and trying to make sure I get all of that input from emails and phone calls as well. Because it's not just the people who we see coming in and yelling at you being angry. But you need to listen to those people too. And so for me, I think the citizens input time needs to be at the beginning and at the end, or if we had to choose one at the beginning, and I would definitely be pushing my colleagues consistently to move it back to the beginning, because I think that is where the people want it, and that is where we can get the most input from the people. Yes, Joe.
The new plans for the yacht club are pretty impressive.
Mm.
The revenue streams that they have piled together to try to fund it are insignificant to the total. They don't meet the total. It's a shortfall. Number one, do you support the plans as envisioned? And number two, if you do, where would you get the rest of the money from?
I do like a lot of the vision. I do think, especially with what you're saying with the revenue stream, there might be areas we may need to cut, to look at to cut. I also think we're also dealing with the situation with the boathouse, and whether if that contract gets renegotiated and we can get the end of the exclusivity, I think the second restaurant would be a part of that revenue stream. I don't know if that's a part of the current calculations that you're referring to.
Yes,
Okay, so in that case, I think at the end of the day, I would be concerned about adding additional fees. Like, I know that one of the things they wanted to do was the parking structure, and I'm already concerned with some of the proposed fees for that parking structure as is. I would at the very least want to have some sort of like a discounted rate for residents of Cape Coral, a significant discounted rate for residents of Cape Coral. But I would be more in favor of making cuts to amenities and trying to go for the smaller amenities like the splash pad as opposed to the bigger amenities and the boat extensions. But I would be more in favor of finding amenities to cut as opposed to increasing fees and cost to the residents. Yes.
Cape Coral needs to expand their commercial property.
Mm.
Are they buying any land in significant amounts, like 5, 10, 15, 20, 30, 40 acres? And if not, why not? Because if you don't have some stuff in reserve, so you can go out and sell it.
Mm. So that from my understanding, no. And I don't know if really the city should be involved in land speculation.
Say that something.
Yeah,
Capitalism.
I'm a free market guy. I believe that the best way to bring in commercial development is to get government out of the way. I am open to, creating tax and fee waivers, and even refunding taxes that they paid after they reach certain benchmarks. Not before they reach certain benchmarks, after they reach those benchmarks. But I think I think that the government should not be involved in building the business itself. They need to get out of the way so that way the business can build itself, and that includes land speculation. I see your point. I think that you're right. We need to have, there needs to be more land available for commercial development. I think that's the biggest issue. But I don't think it's the city's job to buy that land. I think that we need, that's just my view on it. For me, it's a free market issue.
But if you don't have something,
Mm.
next year you're not getting anybody in there because there's not enough land. So that's why you would bank it. Then send somebody out to sell Costco, move in here. We got 40 acres for you.
Yeah, I could definitely see the benefit when I get into city council. Like, I'm someone I'm a very pragmatic person. I'm not someone who's so stubborn on his principles that I would, that if something is rational and reasonable and good for the city and fiscally responsible, that I would take it. But that would be more on a case-by-case basis. Generally speaking, I don't think it's our job to get involved in land speculation. So that's my view on it. Yes.
Just to stir up the pot a little bit.
Oh dear.
One of our organizations that does get involved in land speculation is the school district. How much property do you own in Cape Coral?
Oh, Lord, I have no idea how much.
Enough to set up an industrial district?
No, those pieces are all, I think
Yeah,
the largest
no.
piece is 20 acres.
Yeah,
And we have a lot of smaller pieces.
there are smaller.
But you own enough to build schools into the next century?
We do.
The
No,
pieces
we
they
do
own are not
not.
the right places to put schools.
Right.
I mean, you're absolutely correct. The school district,
We do,
20 years ago, got into land speculating.
yeah.
They didn't buy the right pieces in the right places.
So I'd be
That's
open.
your fault.
No, it wasn't there.
Yes, yes, yes.
We do a land.
Debbie's been there long, but not too long. No, I that would, I'd be open to if you guys have excess land in Cape Coral that we can use for that commercial development. I'd be open to looking into some sort of fair trade on that. For sure. I think that especially if you're not using it and need to get rid of it. But from what I understand from something the superintendent said on on an interview with Wink, she was like, we're gonna build schools everywhere. So I don't know how they're gonna build them on these particular lots. But it sounds like the school, at least the school superintendent, is not interested in getting rid of any land or property anytime soon. Joe, you had another question?
Where was I going? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
You talked about repaving, increasing repaving roads. Do you have any idea how much the budget is for repaving roads now? Both 4-lane arterials and residential? And what would be the right number if you know what they're paying now?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't have any of those exact numbers. I am still,
So you have a ballpark? Yeah, even a ballpark?
I do not know. No, I do
Okay.
not have a ballpark. So I'll be bluntly honest with you on that. I am still reviewing the budget. That is because there's a lot of areas in tax cuts I want to do, but I feel like one of the things that particularly Republicans in Washington always get wrong is they start with the tax cuts and not the spending cuts. And so I really want to go through the budget line by line and figure out. We have a $1.5 billion budget. From my understanding, about $500 million is just general operations and management. That doesn't mean that a whole billion is wasteful. But there's probably areas that I think we can cut. So it's something I want to do, I'm going to be doing a deep dive in. So unfortunately, I do not have that number.
I'm trying to get an array or an area of what you're interested in spending. They spend between 8 to 10 million a year.
Okay.
What do you think would be reasonable?
What would I think would be reasonable? I would have to look at how much we're doing right now at 8 to 10 million a year, and then figure out if that's paving within a significant amount of time. I doubt it is, but I would basically run calculations just to figure out how create sort of like a 5-year plan.
They have, let me help you. They have a
Yeah.
5-year plan based on 20-year life expectancy of every residential road in the city of Cape Coral. So once in every 20 years, they have the plan is set up to repave all the residential roads once in Cape Coral. Everybody says we need repaving in Cape Coral. There's a plan, it's repaving. The one thing we don't understand is we don't repave right before we put utilities in. So that means nothing gets repaved, because you don't repave because you don't tear up what you just paved.
Yeah.
And they repay, they build a new road when you put in utilities, that's why utilities are so expensive. So it's just, you've gotta pay attention before you say they don't have a significant road budget. They have a budget based on a 5-year plan with a 20-year life expectancy for every road in the city.
Thank you for that information. I did not know that, and so I apologize for not knowing that. But yes, again, with the budget, I'm trying to go through it line by line and definitely got
They've
better.
come a long way. My first year in office, they budgeted $150,000 for roads and only spent half of it. We fired that public works director.
2 questions. The first one is a little premature possibly.
Mhm.
because we have new candidates and not everybody has had a chance to kind of voice their position and everything. But as of this moment, how would you differentiate yourself from the other two candidates that have currently declared? And how would you position yourself as why you would be the better candidate based on what you currently have knowledge on their positions?
So yeah, so first off, I am, at least from my understanding, I did a little bit better than one of my opponents, if I'm not mistaken, at least on one of the questions. So I think what differentiates me, you know, my two, and I call my colleagues not my opponents, because I think that there's just so much hatred and opposition in politics, and I think all three of us are running for the same reason. We want to serve the people. One of them is, from my understanding, in fintech, financial technology. The other one's a realtor. Nothing wrong with those professions or experience, but I am someone who is actually a part of the working class. I am someone who, my experience is literally serving people. That is what I do every day, and that is the type of experience I think is needed in all public service. It's about serving the community. And so that's the type, that level of experience of solving people's problems and dealing with angry customers, I think, is something that allows me to deal with angry residents, which you get a lot in politics, unfortunately, whether it's deserved or undeserved. And then, you know, I have been, like I said, I've been around for 15 years now. I sometimes have to remind myself that because I get very nervous on this campaign trail. And I'm like, well, I've been working on everyone's campaigns for a good 10, 15 years now. I've met all these people. I've you know, followed the city council. I've been informed on what they're doing. I obviously don't know everything, and I will admit when I don't know stuff, and I will learn as I continue to do this campaign. But I having been involved and really understanding how our city council works and the day-to-day or the regular meetings of our city council, I think that's what really qualifies me. I think that I have a lot of knowledge and love of the city and how our government works, and just this desire to serve our community and the literal professional experience to serve our community with my customer service experience. So that's what I think differentiates myself between my two colleagues in terms of where I come from, my background, and my knowledge base. Yes, Marilyn.
I serve on the Kiwanis
Yes.
Grant Committee. And this year we received a grant request from the city for $50,000 for the naming rights of a playground at J.C. Park. I'm surprised at the amount that they have asked for, which we cannot provide. But are they being successful with the reach out to the community for subsidization on parks, the park naming rights?
Well, that one I'm not 100% sure. I'm not too familiar with who else they might have solicited for naming rights. I think J.C. Park was one of the biggest political issues last cycle, and it just my view is just the whole situation shouldn't have happened, but it's now happening. We kind of can't go back on that, it appears, as much as I have tried to push council members to try to reverse the decision. It doesn't, you know, the lawsuit from it. So I'm not super familiar whether or not they've looked. I'm assuming they have. If they've gone to you, they've probably gone to other organizations and other individuals. But I think that's kind of concerning that they haven't, you know, they've been making all these plans and now they're needing all these sponsorships in order to budget it out, so.
Can I have a follow-up?
Sure.
Last week, we received a request to support the Junior Leadership Committee, which they appointed,
The youth
to
council?
go to Washington, D.C.
You mean the youth council or?
The youth
Okay,
council,
okay.
The youth council.
Yes.
And they're asking for $20,000 or any part thereof. So.
Yeah, that's shocking. They only need $20,000 to go to DC, but $50,000 for the park.
Well, they're not putting up a dime for these kids.
Yeah.
And I personally think it's wrong.
You know, Rick Williams, may he rest in peace, told me that the youth council was his legacy, and it very much is one of our bright stars in our in our city government. And it's done a lot. I know it's won a bunch of awards at the Florida League of Cities. So yeah, I do think that we should be looking for funds on our end, for possibly from special events that we can send at least part of it that we can send the kids up there for. They shouldn't be relying solely on donations, especially since they are in many ways an apparatus of the city government and a representative of the city government of the city. We take them up there, they are representing Cape Coral. So it's definitely something I would want to look for funding in, possibly from special events or something like that.
I know that a lot of the volunteer committees were disbanded, and I'm not sure what the status is as far as bringing those back online with the new council. But could you discuss a little bit what your thoughts are as far as volunteer committees and their expertise and influence and ability to be able to educate and give guidance to the city council, and how you would be receptive and whether you would expand on that?
Yep.
Please share. Please.
Of course, yeah, I am a big supporter of the citizens advisory boards. I think the more involvement from the citizens, the better. I think that's what we need with our community. We are a Republican form of government. A Republican form of government succeeds when the people are involved. So I would bring back the Waterways Advisory Board. I would bring back the Budget Review Committee. I would bring back the Parks Committee. I think the important things, first off, with all these committees, I think what's always important is you actually find people who are interested in participating in the committees. I think, you and I know this from our time in party politics. It's easy to say, we want to do something. It's hard to get the volunteers to do it. I had the honor of serving on the Community Development Block Grant Board, which is federally mandated, so they can't cancel us. So I served on that for a few years, and there was 1 year where we only had 3 members and actually couldn't meet. So there is an issue also of people wanting to volunteer, but for a lot of these committees, that wasn't really the case. And I think, especially when you're a city council member, when you're an elected official, you need to get information from a number of experts. And I think this is where we get a lot of this criticism on the city manager. I like Mike personally. I think that he is someone from the city and understands the city. And I think a lot of the criticism against Mike is really a criticism on how city manager and city staff, they provide sources of information, and it's like a feedback loop. The city manager steers the city council, and the city council steers the city manager. And so, but if you're only getting one information from one source, then you're not really getting a full picture. And so I think having these different advisory boards with different experts can supplement that information. So not just myself, but other council members can have a much more wide-ranging group of information in order to make better decisions.
May I ask a follow-up?
Yes, go ahead.
What would you do, and maybe it would be your town hall meetings, but what would you do in order to inspire and encourage people to volunteer in those particular committees? Do you have a plan or a thought process on being able to bring in new blood or interview them or encourage?
Well, depending on the committee, you'd go to areas where people would be interested. So like the Waterways Advisory Board, I'd reach out to the boating community. And now, of course, anyone who ever speaks up on like a certain issue, like if they speak up on budgets or parks, we now have those comment cards. I can reach out to them directly and say, hey, if you're interested in this, apply for the Parks Committee, apply for the Budget Committee. And so it's really getting the word out there, and a lot of that also has to do with the Cape Coral Communications team, which I think also generally does a good job. My only real complaint with them is they have a tendency to turn on and off the YouTube live for the live stream, and I personally don't like that you can't comment on city government social media platforms. I think that, again, we're public entities. We should be able to take the criticism from the public, and yeah, you're gonna get some nasty comments. I'm sorry, that's the name of the game.
To be clear, you meant Republican with a small r.
Yes, Republican with a small, Republican form of government being the term used in the Constitution, I'm not running as a Republican, to that way we're all clear.
Okay,
We were.
everybody agrees that there's a lack of sidewalks in Cape Coral. And I asked the question because I don't know the answer. Does the city actually have the right of way for all the needed sidewalks, or would it have to go out and acquire them?
I would assume we would have right away, especially on some of the major streets. Like, for example, I think where we definitely, that's having biked down it and nearly gotten hit by cars on it. Chiquita Boulevard, I know there's been a lot of improvements on the sidewalks over there, but that up onto Pine Island and past, that's where I know we need sidewalks. I'll have to double check to see if we've built them since then, since I've been there a few years ago.
You've got schools and residential areas.
Yeah, schools and residential areas I think are the top priority. Schools particularly are a major priority. And the other thing I actually want to look at is on Coronado and Vincennes, there's like a corner right there that I think might need a stop sign, because you get people when they're going down Coronado going extremely fast, and that's a crosswalk for, I want to say that's Cape Elementary over there on Vincennes. So that's something I would want to look at in terms of getting a stop sign over there, because having biked there multiple times, like if you have kids in that area, especially as a school zone, that could be a dangerous situation. Yes, Joe.
Question as to style. How do you see yourself working as a council member? Or this is based on a response you gave earlier where you talked about staff moves council and council gives direction to staff. So if you think staff has an agenda and they're moving council in a certain direction, how would you go in and fix all that?
So right now,
According to charter, they're not supposed to.
yeah, no, they're not. They're not supposed to. I do think that the previous city manager had more of an agenda than Mike. I don't really think. I think Mike's agenda is working for the people of Cape Coral. I know that there's going to be some people who hear that are going to be really angry at me for saying that, but that's my view on it. I think again, this is something that the city council's job is to really hold the city manager accountable. We can't hold city staff accountable because the city manager is the one by charter responsible for city staff. So any problems with any city staff has to go to the city manager. So that's why we need a good city manager who I think understands the city and understands the city council. So my view is again, it's all about accountability and holding them accountable on that end. In terms of my style and working with anyone, I pride myself in being someone who can get along with anyone. I can, regardless of their ideology or party affiliation, I'm the type of person who, can get along with some of the nastiest people and some of the nicest people. So I think that's particularly important when dealing with the city council, because the city council has to work as a collective body. We get all these people who are criticizing the mayor and individual council members. But I think, John Gunther actually did say it correctly when he said, when you make a decision, the decision is the full council. And I can criticize, like I have disagreements on votes that John has made and that the current person in our seat, Bill Steike, has made and other people have made. But at the end of the day, we have to hold as elected officials, we have to hold the whole council accountable. And my issues, if I have any issues with the votes, I see it as the whole council and try not to attack any individual. Because again, if I get on that city council and let's say John Gunther runs and he's elected again, then I have to work with John and I have to work with anyone else. And so I really pride myself in trying to be respectful in our disagreements. I think that's very important, and getting along as much as we can. It doesn't mean you don't take tough stances or you don't hold people accountable, but you don't do it with hate and anger and vitriol like we see a lot of times. Steve, you don't have any questions for me? Nope. Okay. Yes.
What's the number one issue that District 1 is facing, and then what is your plan to attack it?
That District 1 is facing? I would say we are always dealing with the commercial development that's coming in. And I think it's obviously great that we have that with the Community Redevelopment Agency. I think we're going on the right path with that, so there's not really much I would change. I do know that over the next few years, Cape Coral Bridge is going to be the big issue dealing with that. That's mostly a county thing that they're doing, but I think we've needed that expansion for a while, especially the bike lane. As a bicyclist myself, I'm very excited for the bike lane. I know that the overpass is a bit controversial, and as much as I personally would want that, I don't think the cost justify the benefits, so I would be open to removing that. I don't think that's as essential as just having a separate bike path across the Cape Coral Bridge. But once that happens, that's going to be a disruption in traffic that we have to plan for. And so I think that those are the two biggest issues facing, that's going to be facing my district in the immediate future. But again, always with the commercial development and making sure we're doing that right. There's a lot of great stuff that's coming up there. And so really, there's not much I would do to change in terms of the direction we're going on commercial development, at least in District 1.
As I understand it, right now, the council positions are at large, and there has been some discussion about making them single-member district. Could you share with us what your thoughts are on that?
No.
Okay.
I am an absolute no, and I will tell you why. So there's a few things. I know they're proposing that and an elected city manager. So my view, and the reason I like running at large, first off, the reason a lot of politicians want to run single-member districts is because they don't want to spend the money. I get it. I don't know if I'm going to be raising that much money. I'm going to be honest. I don't know a lot of rich people. I don't know if any of you want to donate to me, but I don't know a lot of rich people, unfortunately. I don't expect to have thousands of dollars in my campaign. There's probably going to be a lot of grassroots campaigning, which thankfully I have experience in with 15 years of doing that type of stuff. But in terms of, I'm sorry, what was the question again?
What your stance on single member
Oh,
versus
yes.
at large, and you
So-
also addressed the city manager.
Yes, so
situation,
with my view is that as a member of the city council, I am representing the whole city. I am making votes and decisions for the whole city. That's why I'm also against the single member for county commission, because the county commission is making decisions for the whole county. And I think that in a local area, it makes sense to have at-large districts, to have your representatives represent the whole of the community. And I want to do that. I feel like if I ran just in District 1, I would lose because I'm not like a big commercial businessman. But I'm not running just to represent the people in District 1 as much as I want to represent them as well. I want to represent the people in District 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And I think that should be the goal of anyone running for this position, is representing everyone in the city of Cape Coral. So that's why personally I am against single member districts in the city of Cape Coral. And the elected city manager, I was just talking to Todd about this with the superintendent. Once you have an elected city manager, then their decisions are purely political. The whole point of the manager council form of government is to keep the politics out of the basic administration of government, of the local government. And it's very interesting, I've been talking about this a lot with a lot of different people. Local government is really one of the few places where there's actual bipartisan action. We saw it with J.C. Park, with Democrats and Republicans actually working together to try to save that park. Unfortunately, it failed. But you see a lot of bipartisan action. There's a reason we have this system, and there's definitely reforms we can make in terms of our form of government, but I don't think an elected city manager is a way to go, because again, then you're creating a situation where you're making the administration of government politicized, just like you have at school boards.
So I have a follow-up question. So if something comes up in, say, District 4, and that's something that you're gonna be voting on as an entire board, would you be amenable to giving more, maybe, credibility to the input of the District 4 council person, because they may be more attuned to the specifics of that particular concern or issue? Or how are you gonna go about doing that?
Yeah, obviously, well, I would, so generally speaking, yes, if there's like, you have a council member who's like, let's say in District 6 or District 7, which is a little bit more farther than District 4 is close enough to my district that I'm somewhat enough familiar with, but let's say like District 7, right, where I'm not, I don't know like Gator Circle, for example. Yeah, I would lean on Rachel Kaduk for her wisdom, but I would also really lean on the residents in that community more. Like I would want to reach out and make sure I get the input from the people who live there, not just the council member that's representing that district.
You walked into it, you're gonna listen to the people, the neighbors, when you wanna do commercial development in Cape Coral, or are you gonna listen to the needs of the 230,000 people?
I am glad you asked that, because I really want to clarify my position on this. Perfect. So I kind of divide commercial development into three spots. But what we were talking about with commercial and residential, you're absolutely right. And this was something that was had me rethinking my position. Because generally speaking, yes, you want to make sure that the resident, if you're putting commercial and residential, you need to have that residential input. My belief is that we need to get that earlier in the process. What we're seeing now is like the situation on the Del Prado where they had the controversy, right? That's an area where it makes sense to put commercial, but the residents in that area didn't want it. They came at the last minute to complain, right when the plans are done, we're just signing and sealing the document. That's what I think is the big problem here. And so what I would like to do is really work proactively. And if I have to do this individually as a council member, so that way we don't give the city staff more work, I'm willing to do that. But before it even gets to like planning and zoning and the hearing examiner, we need to reach out to these residents proactively, as opposed to, not that the city's not providing ample notice, they obviously are, but I would want to reach out proactively, call them, knock on their door, let them know, hey, there's this plan to go into commercial development. They're starting that planning process. We want your input now so it doesn't negatively affect you or has the least negative impact on you. I think that commercial developers would want to do this because those residents are going to be their future customers. They don't want to piss them off. So my view, I think that my instinct as someone who's really running as a populist who really wants to represent the residents, my instinct is if the neighbors don't want it, don't put it there. But you're right, just because the 5 people don't want commercial in their neighborhood doesn't discount the fact that we have 200,000 residents who want commercial. Not only do they need more places to work here in Cape Coral, so they're not commuting, but they need places to go and places to shop and places to do things. I think we need more entertainment destinations as well. Like places, we only have the one movie theater, one water park, the one, Gator Mike's now, Mike Greenwell's I still call it. So we don't have that much places for people to go except for a bar, which I'm not a drinker, so I'm not really going to Dixie's all that often. But so you're absolutely right. Like, you can't discount the need for the commercial development that the rest of the hundreds of thousands of people want just for the sake of 4 or 5. But we need to make sure that their input of that community is involved earlier in the process. So that way, maybe we can't give them everything they want, but we can find compromises so that way having that development next to their house is viable for them. And I'll give you actually a perfect example that I helped a resident with. About a few years ago, there was a commercial development that I think they were expanding the Lowe's. And there was a guy at the house right where they were going to expand it who was complaining about how if you put it right there, the light's going to be right at my bedroom. And so I made sure to introduce him to different council members and brought it up, and they moved it like 1 or 2 blocks back, so it wouldn't affect them. It's simple stuff like that, like finding different compromises, so that way, if you're building a commercial next to a residential, it's bearable for the residents there. But this needs to be done earlier on, because what we are seeing now is residents waiting till the last minute, whether or not they're getting their notices in time or not. That's an entirely different conversation. I think that the city is, I'm assuming they're giving them in a timely fashion, but they're just waiting to the last minute to speak up on that. They need to be involved earlier, not later.
Are you labeling yourself as a populist?
I would consider myself a populist, yes. In terms of I'm wanting to serve the people. I wouldn't consider myself a populist in terms of I'm a demagogue.
Sort of a Huey Long figure.
Yeah, I have a lot of, even though I'm more ideologically, you could say, to the right, I have a lot of appreciation for what Huey Long was bringing to the table in some respects.
So I've known you for over 15 years.
Yes.
And I've seen huge growth in just about every single area, Sean.
Thank you, Tara.
And one thing that I noticed in the past that I've seen a huge change on is people would bring ideas to you and it would sound good at the time and you would run with it.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, somebody else would bring an opposing idea and you would flip to that. Can you explain to us how you've changed your perspective when it comes to agreeing with something presented to you versus doing research before you commit? And just share with us your growth process in that particular area, because I think that's something I've seen, but I think it's something a lot of other people might not know about.
And I'll be honest, it is something I'm still growing on, for sure. That impulsivity never dies, for sure. But you're right. I am someone who I try to take a step back now before I take stronger positions. I know there's like positions that I really want to take right now. Like, for example, I really want to eliminate the public service tax, but I can't make that promise until I can tell you, oh, what am I going to cut in order to justify that tax cut? And I can't tell you that until I actually do my research on it. So for me, I've been given a lot of counsel to essentially shut my trap. has been the biggest amount of wisdom I have been given, and I have been working very hard to do that. Am I successful at it all the time? Absolutely not. But you're right, this is something that I used to have an issue with, and it's, again, you have to look at all the sides, and the commercial development is a perfect example. My initial instinct is, okay, these people don't want it there, we can't have it there. But then, like Joe said, and like it was brought to my attention, what about the hundreds of thousands of people who want commercial, who need commercial? And why do their voices don't matter? So again, I am always learning, and that's something you can count on me on as someone who, one, when I make a mistake, I will own up to my mistakes, and two, I am always able and willing to learn and with new information. And if I have to change my position on something with new information, I absolutely will do that. That's Todd.
As a superintendent, I used to always tell my new board members that we encourage them to have their own opinion. We encourage them to voice their own opinion. But that once the board took action on something, whether they agreed with it or not, it was their responsibility to support that action. You're on your committee, whatever it is, and they pass something that you feel totally against. How do you handle it?
That is a good question, and I'm going to be real honest. I don't subscribe to that view. That reminds me of the term democratic centralism, which is something that you saw in different communist parties, where once the body made a decision, everyone had to agree with that decision. I will agree with the sense that, okay, if the city council makes a resolution or an ordinance and it's the law, I will support and abide by the law. But as someone who believes in freedom of speech, as someone who is very opinionated, if we pass a resolution that I disagree with, I will voice my disagreement. I am not one of those people, and I'm especially opposed to this idea of censoring council members from speaking to the media or speaking to the press. We are all individuals and all have a right to speak about our positions on the issues. So I would respectfully disagree on the premise of it, where we all have to basically agree with the position. If I feel like we've made a decision that is wrong, I will voice that disagreement, and I will voice it publicly. Yes.
The city council and the mayor, is that a part-time or a full-time job? And base it on, say, 40 hours a week would be, centrally. And how much do they make?
So I view currently how the city council does their job as a part-time job, working about 20 to 25 hours a week, probably at most. In terms of the main Wednesday meeting that they have, any of their committee meetings that they have. Now that doesn't necessarily mean that I would be working part-time hours, and that doesn't mean that other council members aren't working part-time hours, because you also have a lot of constituency work, which I think is kind of hard to calculate. But my view is, when you look at the work associated with the actual city government that they're required to do as a city council member, I consider it a part-time job, and I'm thinking they're making, I think it's like $36,000 to $38,000 right now, somewhere around there. I know in the city charter it was 32, but that's obviously been increased. And honestly, that's more than I'm making in my full-time job. So I don't need a pay increase. I know that might be something that they're bringing up on the Charter Review Commission to tie it with the stipend. I hope they don't. I don't need the pay increase. And I think anyone who runs for office for the money is doing it for the wrong reasons. I understand the argument, $36,000, $38,000 is not enough to live on for if you're trying to start a family. But I'm not doing this for the money. The salary that the city council members make now is more than I'm making now at my full-time job. So I'm more than happy to work a part-time job, make more money than I'm working on at my full-time job. So
I'll do a follow-up.
yeah.
When I was coming up, I always thought that 3 hours a night as a second job,
Yeah.
which is 15 hours. You're talking 25, 30 hours. To me,
Be-
that's not part-time. That's getting damn close to.
Well, for me, full-time is I work 40 hours a week at my current job, and I make less than what the city council members make. So for me, yeah, I can see what you're saying. The 20 to 25 is a pretty decent, but I would still consider a part-time job. And that's really, I'm including like that 3 hours that you mentioned, but then also you have, for example, as a city council member, I probably would be on the CRA, that's another few hours. And then there's 2 or 3 different committees. How many? I was like each of us get like 2 or 3 different committees. And so if I wanted, like, I want to be on the MPO because public transportation and multimodal transportation's a personal passion of mine. And CTAC and all these different committees, and those include 1 to 2 hours every week or 2 weeks or so. So that's why I would say you're looking at about 20 to 25 hours absent of constituency services. Yes, Joe.
The old Cape Coral Golf Course is now owned by the city.
Yep.
And they're in the initial planning process. Describe what would be your preferred planning process, not necessarily the outcome, but what would be the preferred planning process?
I think we need as much public input as we can. I think when they started doing, I think it was the Yacht Club a few years ago, they had at least 2 or 3 town halls that we're doing. I think the main thing that we have to do with these town halls, though, is focus on getting input instead of dictating what we're doing. And we've seen that sometimes, particularly in the later parts, but thank you, Tara. But so my view is have at least 3 to 4 town hall style meetings in different parts of the city, probably one in each of the quadrants, if you will, southeast, southwest, northeast, northwest, so we can get as much input as we can. When we start off there, we have to figure out what the people want there. From what I've been told from a lot of people want green space, which I like. I personally like the idea of bringing back or rebuilding parts of the Cape Coral Gardens in that area. As someone who's really looked at that history there, I kind of regret not having the opportunity to have seen that. And so that's me personally, but it's not about me. It's about what the citizens in that area want. I also believe in particular, we definitely need to get those people in that neighborhood, and on that Palm Tree Boulevard area, in the Country Club Parkway area, right? Yes.
Both sides.
Both sides, yes. That was actually, so my family, that's where my family, when we moved here in '94, that's where we moved, right there on a palm tree next to right behind the 7.
So you're willing to start with a blank page, or do you present possibilities?
I think we present different possibilities for sure, but generally we would do a blank slate. We wouldn't have anything set in stone, but I think you're right. We need to have some options because people need to know what could be done there. All right, people could say, "Oh, we want green space. Oh, we want this. Oh, we want that." But what can be done there? And so, coming up with those options of what can be done, and then hearing from the citizens what they want in that area, I think that is the best direction to go. Yes, Tim.
Sidebar on the golf course is obviously something recently that has come up. I'm curious about something that happened in the past that is nowhere near completion. What's your position on how we fix the go bond for the parks and where that money is going to come from and how you would right that ship on something that I think a lot of people in the city have considered to be completely mismanaged?
Yeah. I wish we could just do another go bond, but how can we ask people to vote on that? Because you're right, this whole thing has been not mismanaged, and a lot of that, of course, has to do with just the general inflation of building up that infrastructure. I think, with the exception of projects that are ongoing now, I think we have to take a step back and take a look at where everything is, and then reassess from there. I think the city council's already doing that or doing something similar to that. But again, my view is with the amount of financial mismanagement, focus on, first off, from my understanding, there's no more money in it as it is from the projects that we have. And so we would need to basically reassess and figure out where we are going to get the financing for. That's not something I have a fully direct answer on, though. Yes. Yeah.
I would say that the reason why the Go Bond projects has failed so miserably is they didn't get it done fast enough.
Mm-hmm.
The inflation is what.
Yeah.
But the reason why they didn't get it done fast enough is they went to and exceeded numerous changes based on public input. Tropicana Park.
Mm-hmm.
They changed that $3.5 million more because of what the neighbors wanted. How do you balance that? If you know that you have a geo bond, you have certain parks associated with it, and you need to get them done in 18 months. And by the way, the last time we did a geo bond in 1988 for parks, we got it all done and gave them everything we said we're going to give them. This time here, they've extenuated the time because of listening, and then all the changes. Yeah. They all cost money.
We need to get the public input before we do the planning, and then once we start the planning part, and once we have that part, we can't you can't stop it from there. You can't just keep changing it. And it's because people change their minds on certain things. You have to get all that input first, and then once that's input's calculated, then you have to go in and make the plan. And then once it's planned, it's the same thing with the situation on the Del Prado residential. You know, you're coming in and complaining after the planning is done. So that would be my position on that is, you know, get all the public input first, and then stop public input. Well, not really stop public input. I mean, you'll still have like the people emailing in and all that stuff, but stop essentially public input from influencing the planning from there. That would be my position on that, and how I would handle. Yes.
I think in Tallahassee, the governor's talking about getting rid of property taxes, and it seems to have some momentum. You know, how would that affect the city of Cape Coral?
It really depends on how they are going to propose it. So from my understanding, so I actually did a podcast with Jonathan Martin on this issue called Wonky Talk, which it was a funny name, but it's a policy podcast that I got to do with him to talk about property taxes. And from what I've heard from him, as well as from Byron Donalds, who's running for governor, is that essentially you'd have to replace property taxes with sales taxes. And I don't know if that means that the state's gonna raise sales taxes to 12%, which, mind you, look, as a renter, you know, I don't see the property taxes directly on my account, but I would feel the sales tax. And you have a lot of renters and low-income people who would be disproportionately affected for that. So cutting one tax to increase taxes elsewhere, I don't think is a good solution. If that's the direction they're gonna go, I'm probably gonna vote no. And if the direction is going to be, oh, we're gonna cut property taxes and raise taxes elsewhere in different ways, not sales tax, but in different ways, but then the state's gonna be the one giving the city their budget, I'm gonna be a no on that too, because I think that the city, best government is the government that runs locally. All right, we in Cape Coral, generally speaking, know what's best for our city. And we should be the ones making decisions on the city. I'm very much against a lot of the decisions that were made in Tallahassee to prevent our city government from taking care of our own business, taking care of our own community. Some of it I'm okay with in terms of protection of property rights. I get that, but there's so many things where it's like the state likes to step in quite a bit and tell us in the city what to do. And you know, I'm a big believer. I'm a big believer in decentralized government. Small federal government, a little bit bigger, but still small state government, and limited, but large enough to handle the basics city government.
On that line, there's been some recent discussion that our school board is bringing in a lobbyist, both obvious at the federal level, now at the state level. What do you envision your role as a city council member when it comes to going and lobbying on behalf of Cape Coral on issues such as this up in Tallahassee, and how would you go about doing that?
So I do know the city council does have a lobbying firm that we do hire, at least for Tallahassee. I'm pretty sure they also handle DC. So I know they have someone professional to do that. Look, I'm not a professional lobbyist. I don't know how that process works, so I will defer to that, and I will judge when I get on the city council, or judge whether or not we keep them based on whether or not they're successful in getting us legislation. Now, as for me, as you know, I have a very good relationship with a lot of the legislators. I have a very good relationship with county commissioners. I got a very good relationship with school board members. I see myself as an elected official and as a representative of the city, as someone who has the ability and authority to lobby for the city. So I would be very much one of those people who will reach out directly to these legislators, not just the ones that we know in our district, but you know, as the bills go through committees, you know, I'll reach out to the chair, I'll reach out to those individual legislators themselves. If I have to go to Tallahassee to testify, I will testify, or go in and have individual one-on-one meetings with the legislators as they're going through the committee weeks. I'll absolutely do that, because we need to put, especially with legislation that we're lobbying for, we haven't been as successful as I feel on a lot of things. And I think we need to put as much muscle as we can to get what we need done in Cape Coral. And that is the job, not just of me as a council member, but every single one of the council members on that city council. We should all really be going up together in like a bus that we pay for, and hopefully not the taxpayers pay for, but we should all be going up there and you know, lobbying as a group. Ideally, we wouldn't need to hire our own lobbyists, but I can understand, you know, there's some levels of expertise that they may have that we don't, that we can rely on. But again, I will be judging our lobbying firm based on the results they deliver. Yes, Skip.
You were talking about, public transportation is one of your pet things.
Mhm.
How would you improve, because most public transportations lose money. They're not made to make money. But how would you pay for better public transportation in Cape Coral?
So in terms of paying, again, the funding for that mostly comes from the county. I know that one of the things I wanted to look into, and again, it would be based on funding, is some sort of like downtown trolley similar to the River District trolley, but that's something the city of Fort Myers pays for, and I would have to look at the cost for that. And then I would, and generally speaking, I would want to figure out pulling costs from other areas and whether or not we can. So in terms of how I would find the funding, I would try to pull the costs in different areas. Again, I haven't done a full dive on the budget yet, so I can't name specifics, but that would be my priority there. What I would really want to do, or what I want to work with Lee County on in terms of our public transportation, is the expansion of Lee Tran Ultra, which is a program which is essentially like public transit Uber, and it is more cost effective in certain areas and would be more cost effective, especially in North Cape where we don't have the coverage. So.
Along that same line is, the days of driverless vehicles that you can call, same as an Uber or anything else, are coming, and I would think the price of that's probably a lot cheaper than public transportation. I see public transportation is going down and individual rides going up.
I was in Phoenix for a conference, and they had those Waymo driverless cars. They are really, really cool. That was going to require, and I know that the Lee County's transportation plan, and I believe Cape Coral's transportation plan is looking at that at the long-term level, but I think that's something we need to prioritize now in terms of coming up with the safety regulations for, because there's a lot of that has to be done to make sure that they're safe to drive on the road. And having used them, I think they are safe to drive. We just need to make sure that they're programmed properly.
Well, I think the big advantage is to take you from where you are to where you're going.
Yeah.
Instead of a bus that drops you off several blocks.
Yeah, so that's where the Lee Tran Ultra program comes in, and my senior thesis on this was on Lee Tran Ultra, so I got a chance to learn a lot, and I thought the same thing too, that having the door-to-door service was more cost effective, but it can't replace the entire public transit system. Ironically, still the fixed route system is the more cost-effective option across the board, but the door-to-door is easier in areas where you have like a bus, for example, that doesn't get a lot of ridership, but you need something there for that community. So like North Cape is the perfect example where there are not a lot of people riding the fixed bus route who need it, but if you have something there, they'll be able to use it, and it's a quicker solution.
All right, well, we are out of time.
Oh wow.
Good luck.